So guys, let's see some art.
So I watched Emily in Paris last November. I remember being really excited for this show because I like Lily Collins and I followed all the stories she posted on her Instagram account while she was working on the show. Then I got distracted with work and other stuff and forgot about it until it came out and most people promptly hated it, calling it cliche, boring, unrealistic, atrociously self-centered, and even offensive to French culture. And with a second season coming in December, I'd like to share my opinions on season 1 so I can be dreadfully prepared for the next one. Emily Cooper is a marketing executive who lives in Chicago with her boyfriend. The company she works for acquired a luxury French firm, Savoie, where Madeline, who's Emily's boss, was supposed to be moving to Paris for.
I've been dreaming of moving to Paris forever. I mean, Frenchmen, they love older women, you know? Look at their president. He's young, he's hot. He married his school teacher.
Is that inspirational to you? 'Cause how? Oh, by the way, pause to read, 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 pause to read. You got it? Okay, let's move on now. Okay, so Madeline is fully confident in Emily's capacities and tells her she's ready to step on her shoes, which,
It's like wearing poetry.
a pitch so bad it made Madeline vomit. I'm joking. Madeline found out she was pregnant and now Emily has to go to Paris in her place. As soon as Emily arrives to Paris, she's received by horny attitude.
Want to have a drink tonight?
I have a boyfriend.
In Paris?
In Chicago.
So you don't have a boyfriend in Paris?
And not so horny attitude because our dear Emily doesn't speak a word of French. Well, she speaks some, but...
I'm très excitée to be here.
Excité? Really? Excité does not mean excited. It means horny.
Oh,
yeah. While she's at work, she's not received enthusiastically due to the cultural clash and language barrier. There, she meets Sylvie, who's her boss in Paris, and it's not very fond of Emily. In fact, we can say that she kinda hates her. She also meets her co-workers Julian, who's sassy, black, and probably gay, which we don't know exactly because besides being a stereotype, he's not given much to do on his own. We also meet Luke, who is a kind dude and a bit of a pervert too. Outside of work, she's going to meet Gabriel, who will appear every time she needs him somehow. Mindy, a Chinese-Korean nanny/Harris who will become her friend almost immediately. And Camille, a French Harris who will become her friend immediately and appears as soon as she's needed to have a conflict over Gabriel's D, and is universally regarded as the best person in the show. Throughout the show, she's going to face a lot of professional situations like trying to be accepted by her co-workers, dealing with a client that happens to be Sylvie's lover and also Blair Waldorf's stepfather,
Merci, Blair.
follow an American movie star around Paris to look out for a watch that was insured in 2 million euros, and single-handedly destroy and try to rebuild the confidence of a famous French designer. In her personal life, we will also see Emily navigating a breakup to her boyfriend over not wanting to do a long-distance relationship, which in my opinion was covered rather quickly, but okay. Having multiple lovers who will be smitten with her for a reason I wouldn't understand if she wasn't portrayed by Lily Collins, and developing feelings for and having an affair with her neighbor Gabriel while stabbing the beautiful angel that is Camille in the back. Oh, and Mindy is there for support, although she has her own storyline too. We are told how good Emily is at work. We are told how talented she is and how clients are happy to work with her. However, we don't see how she has earned that reputation since what we see as an audience is quite the opposite. In The Devil Wears Prada, we can sympathize with Andy because we get to see how her job is done, how much she struggles to get it done, and how her commitment to it affects other areas in her life. In Emily in Paris, however, when Emily faces a work situation, there are two ways in which she gets it done. She either asks Gabrielle for help, who happens to be there when she needs any sort of help.
We're planning to close in 30 minutes.
okay, I'll see you in 15. Mercy.
This is a guaranteed way to get someone to spit in your food. or is something that gets resolved off camera or by mere luck. Like when Brigitte Macron retweeted her, or when one of her clients happened to find the perfect spot for her marketing campaign on one of her Instagram posts. Everything is sort of given to her just because she is the protagonist and we never see her struggle to get something done. And when we see her struggling, it's due to her own lack of professionalism or responsibility. Like the time she lost Brooklyn Clark, who's the actress that was wearing the €2 million watch that Emily was responsible for. Brooklyn left a 4th-year party when Emily wasn't paying attention. She found her in a club thanks to Gabriel, and since Emily was getting cozy with him for a second time, she lost her and the watch again. She did such a bad job that Sylvie had to intervene, talk to the hotel manager, enter the room, and get the watch back herself, and basically solve all the problems Emily told her not to worry about. Emily is shown as an enthusiastic worker, but not a particularly talented or competent one, only able to keep her job because the plot requires her to do so. We can't agree with the characters who approve of the way she works because we are not watching the same. Call My Agent is another show set in Paris in which we get an insight of how a talent agency and the people who work in there relate to their work and try to balance it and their personal lives too. But since the show gives us an idea of the struggles and goals they have to achieve at work, when the characters succeed or fail in their working or personal life, we are more invested in their experiences. Failure is not an option in Emily in Paris. She has to get her way because she's the main character. As a viewer, I personally would like to see more of the marketing process and generally more a side of Emily actually working so we can sympathize with moments like this.
We are all a little afraid of you.
What? Afraid of me? How?
Your ideas, they are more new. Maybe they're better.
I mean, what ideas? So far, we have only heard how excited she is to be there. That's all. The way the show portrays French culture makes France, and in this case Paris, seem like a completely different world that Emily wasn't aware of, which would work if this show was set in the late 90s or early 2000s, but not in a modern and globalized world where social media and Google dominate the internet. Although Emily going to Paris was a last-minute decision, it would take her maybe 30 minutes to Google information about French culture, all things related to business etiquette and basic information about how society works there, so she wouldn't feel so out of place and look unprepared when she's facing the culture she seems to be so excited about. She's been called out on her behavior in 2 occasions by 2 different characters who are right about the way she behaves.
You come to Paris. You walk into my office. You don't even bother to learn the language. You treat the city like it's your amusement park. And after a year of food, sex, wine, and maybe some culture, you'll go back from where you came.
Maybe that's a little arrogant.
You come to Paris and you don't speak French. That is arrogant.
More ignorant than arrogant.
She's often conditioning an environment to adapt to her costumes and traditions instead of her adapting to the place she's at right now.
Well, maybe I'll educate the chef a little bit about customer service.
You think you're gonna change the entire French culture by sending back a steak?
I personally took the time to look for a couple of things any expat should keep in mind when visiting another culture. Open yourself to new experiences, stay positive, and see everything as a learning curve.
I'll never learn the language or understand anything here.
Develop a respect for the different costumes that we find around the world.
Oh, I know. It's like the French R can't be bothered to come out of their mouths.
Immerse yourself in an environment where the main language is the mother language. Get rid of stereotypes. Learn to adapt. No culture will bend their rules just because you have graced them with your presence.
You booked the 8th of November. This is the 11th of August.
Oh my god. You reversed the dates.
No, you reversed the dates.
Okay, but could you just...
Ah, désolé, c'est pas possible.
But it's just like really important.
Bonsoir, madame.
Don't be arrogant about your heritage and respect the locals. This will get you respect in return.
Your language is seriously effed up.
TV Paris. The TV version of Paris is quite sanitized. Due to the nature of the show, the city is shown in a more idealistic light in the same way that New York is shown in Sex and the City. We don't see the poverty, trash, the insane amount of tourists that go around the city, which I personally think it's fine since that wasn't the focus of the show, but I will be lying if I say it wouldn't be interesting to see Emily going around all the people selling souvenirs in the streets around the Eiffel Tower. The apartment. When the guy from the rental agency introduces the apartment to Emily, he says it's a chambre de bonne, which is not. As soon as the camera pans out, we see where she really is, which is the apartment right under the chambre de bonne. Aside from that, and according to a couple of listings I saw on Airbnb, this apartment is quite spacious for something you will find out these days, especially compared to something like this or this. The language. We see Emily trying to learn French at first, and she says one or two words to sound chic or whatever. But somehow, all the other characters in the show also speak English, which I get for Sylvie, that is a marketing executive. I assume that's part of the skills required to communicate with clients worldwide. Mindy, who also is an expat, and Camille, who explained how she learned English with American TV shows. But all the other characters are required to speak English because otherwise Emily would be left out of the conversation. Since this show has a new season coming and probably a couple more planned, it will be interesting to see Emily dominating the language along the way and the show transition between 90% English to 100% French, which in my opinion will be an interesting concept and also an ambitious one, but non-realistic on my part since I doubt that's the direction the show is going for. Smoking/eating. In a couple of scenes, we have seen Sylvie has mentioned smoking instead of eating, once suggested to Emily during the Delore event.
Stop eating. Why are you eating?
I'm sorry, it's just so good and I'm so hungry.
Well, have a cigarette.
And then to avoid going out for lunch with her.
Do you want to have lunch?
No, I'll have a cigarette.
These are examples of a stereotype that suggests that French women don't gain weight because they smoke and don't eat, which is quite an unhealthy and overused stereotype. We could also see this scene where there's a contrast between Emily who is eating and these girls who are smoking, and I might be stretching, but I assume there is a correlation to this cliche. The unkind French/Parisian. We see a couple of characters who are not so nice to our main character, and then Mindy saying this.
And the food is so delicious, the fashion so chic, the lights so magical, but the people, so mean. I mean, they can't all be mean. Oh, yes they can.
Which I can attribute to a couple of things. One of those being the language barrier, because we have seen in the show that there are a handful of situations that would be a lot easier for Emily if she knew the language. French people are proud of their culture, and in my opinion and experience, they would be far more open to you if you, as a tourist, try to learn and speak their language. Another factor could be French people in Paris compared to other parts of France. I would say people in a city like Paris may appear unfriendly, cold, and distrustful, not because they are French, but because they live in a capital city, and I've seen this sort of situation happen in other capital cities as well. If you go to any country and visit the countryside or a small town and compare it to a big city in the same country, you will find a harsh contrast between those since the environment is quite different. Although this is my opinion, and if you have any other theories or experiences, you're welcome to share them in the comments. Boy, I really thought I could cover this in one video, but my thoughts on the show ended up being more extensive than I originally thought they were gonna be. I will make a part 2 discussing Emily's fashion, each one of the characters, and the controversy surrounding the Golden Globes and Emily in Paris, and give my conclusions regarding the show as well. Once again, please let me know in the comments what you think, and thanks for watching. See you next time, bye bye!